And I know when you first ran for president, I think it was you. I remember you telling me that it was done essentially because Congress had become completely captive. That all of those Congress people, Fulbright and others that you were once able to work with, had been essentially pushed out of the Democratic Party. That it had been seized. The entire party and the Congress have been seized by corporate power. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Especially in 1980, the landslide against Jimmy Carter by Ronald Reagan, a grade B actor who had spent some years as governor of California. We lost Senator Magnuson. We lost Senator Church. We lost Senator Nelson. These were the champions, and others were about to be defeated. We had strong progressive Democratic senators from North and South Dakota. Jim Aberes, for example. We had Senator George McGovern. We had two progressive senators, and now they're all Republicans. There is hardly a shred of the Democratic Party in 4 mountain states and the 2 prairie states. So now, having abandoned them, they start with a handicap of 12 senators that they don't even compete to challenge in the U.S. Senate. It's pretty hard to control the Senate when you start with 12 down from the get-go. So, yeah, what you said was the trend, and it got worse and worse. Instead of getting a stronger Democratic Party, a stronger progressive movement, it got weaker. The sign of a decaying democracy is that when the forces of plutocracy, oligarchy, multinational corporations increase their power in all sectors of our society, the resistance gets weaker. Now, in a healthy democracy, the resistance would get stronger. There'd be more marches, demonstrations, litigation, candidates running for office, and, of course, more lobbying groups by new citizen organizations. And we saw just the opposite. And the price we're paying right now, the end product of all this is Donald J. Trump. Der Fuhrer, the voters in this country, seeing just 2 alternatives, the Republican Party and Democratic Party, on November 5th, narrowly elected a lawless dictator who is now at large in our White House, dismantling what's left of the democratic accountability, the role of Congress, and dictating anything he wants to do. In fact, in July 2019, he said, with Article 2, I can do whatever I want as president. And he's proving it, both in his first term and even on a more greater rampage in the last few days, starting his second term.
But all of this was the rot preceded, of course, Trump, even from the first administration, the destruction of civil liberties, including our right to privacy with wholesale surveillance, the destruction of due process. And you have been very critical of the liberal class, the Democratic Party, for either being active or complicit. I remember you once saying, where are the heads of all the law schools? Well, why aren't they speaking out? And even before Trump ran, when you were running, I remember you telling me once, it's just all a dictator would have to do is flick a switch. It's already there. It's already been arranged.
Yeah, if you just look at the countervailing forces that hold up a society's civilized norms, due process of law, and democratic traditions, they're all either AWOL or collapsing. For example, there are over 1 million lawyers. They're called part of the legal profession. Where have they been? The bar associations don't speak out. The American Bar Association, the biggest bar association in the world, they don't take a stand. They're the first responders. They're supposed to be our sentinels. They're AWOL. The organized church that used to sustain the norms, they collapsed. Gambling is everywhere now, right down at fingertips for a teenager in his or her bedroom can gamble. That's collapsed on many fronts. They were in the forefront, the civil rights movement, the peace movement. Where are they now? In fact, the evangelical groups in the South are just opposite. They're for war. They're for destruction of Palestinian rights. They love Donald J. Trump. It's just the opposite. The labor unions have never been weaker. There's a few surges in partial organization at Starbucks and in Starbucks and Amazon and others, of course. But the number of unionized workers still going down, down, down. It's the lowest in 80, 90 years. I think only about 10% of all workers now, public and private, together are organized, and they're headed by often very cautious leaders who, every time we propose to them to join with consumer environmental forces, pass it by the Democratic Party apparatus that turns it down. So they're like a tail of the Democratic Party. The civic groups, they're totally outnumbered. They can't keep up with all the opposition, just in terms of people, number of lobbyists on Capitol Hill, litigators, they're struggling for funds. So you can see the media, of course, who we just finished talking, they have cut the ground under the citizen movement and the citizen community, and that's basically why the Democrats lost election after election, including the one last November, because the civic groups are groups that know how to talk to people at the grassroots. They don't differentiate between conservative workers and liberal workers for health and safety, or conservative patients and liberal patients for health and safety, or consumers. They don't do that. They talk to all people, and they know the language, they know the strategies and the tactics. They were completely blocked by the Democratic Party from any input. Why? Because, few people know this, the Democratic Party not only is wallowing in corporate PAC money, they have contracted out their campaigns to corporate conflicted political and media consultants who raise the money, develop the strategy, generate the taboos, and block us from input into the Democratic Party at the national, state, and local level. And that blockage kept the Democratic Party from taking the most obvious positions that could have won easily the House, Senate, and the presidency last year. For example, they could have made a big deal out of a frozen federal minimum wage of $7.25. That's 25 million workers would get a raise to $15 an hour. And they didn't do it. Kamala Harris just made a throwaway line. They didn't listen to Bernie Sanders, for example. They could have increased benefits of Social Security, which have been frozen for 50 years. Instead, they said, we'll protect Social Security as it is now. About 65 million people would have gotten higher Social Security benefits. They could have defeated the Republicans on the child tax credit extension. 61 million kids from conservative liberal families were getting an average of $300 a month. It cut poverty almost in half among children in the United States, and they didn't do that. Instead, Kamala Harris sent her brother-in-law to Wall Street to talk to Goldman Sachs and corporate law firms to advise her on her economic and tax policy. And her most memorable phrase is opportunity economy. Well, that really spells specifics to put food on people's table. So basically, the Democratic Party owes America a huge apology in maybe 10 installments of how they sabotaged the only party that could have saved the Republic from the fascism and the corporatism and the militarism of the GOP. Instead, the Democratic Party became part of the problem. They also were militaristic, they were corporatistic, and they weren't all that great in terms of opening the channels of government to civic input. And so they had a autocratic dimension as well.